Good morning. This is not Kevin Price. This is Chris Kidd filling in for Kevin Price, hosting today. And I want to welcome our first guest on. And we're sitting here with Debbie Ortiz. And Debbie, who's your first guest today?
Thank you. Well, again, I'm with Cornerstone Recovery, and thanks to Kevin, he's allowed us to be on to talk about our program. So I'm very pleased to have Dr. F Basinger, who is going to be receiving our Vision Award at our annual breakfast on March the 27th. So welcome, and congratulations to you.
Well, thanks, Debbie, and thanks, Chris. What a great honor to be honored by Cornerstone Recovery, and I'm absolutely thrilled, and I'm counting on all my friends out there to make the breakfast a success.
Thank you so much. Scott, if I could ask you a couple of questions. I know that you had served on the Cornerstone board, and then you went away, so you were dedicating your time to hope and healing, and now you just recently came back to rejoin the board, and I wondered what made you decide that that's what you needed to do at this point in your life?
Well, Debbie, I've been a long-time supporter of teens and adolescents who have drug and alcohol problems and trying to find effective tools to get them into recovery. And I met Annette Edens and Kirk Campbell about 12 years ago and fell in love with the alternative peer group model for helping teens who were willing to get sober to stay sober and then live sober. So I came on the board and left the board after I had decided to take a stab at founding this new organization called the Hope and Healing Center and the Hope and Healing Institute. When I retired from that, I had a big space in my life, and the very first thing I wanted to do was go back on the Cornerstone board. So fortunately, they voted me in, and I think I had my first meeting a couple weeks ago.
Debbie, real quick, tell us a little bit more about Cornerstone Recovery.
Oh, thank you. Well, basically, as Scott said, we are an alternative peer group. That means that we offer a safe place that kids can go, where they normally would go and use with their friends. Now they have a healthy place. And another thing that we offer is adventure learning, which takes them into like the wilderness. They do these wilderness trips every summer. And they really have an opportunity to get in touch with what we call their character defects so that they can overcome their addictions. And it's extremely effective. And I know that that's part of why Scott has been involved, because he came on early. We've been in existence for 15 years, and we've just continued to refine the model. And we have 90% effectiveness in treating kids.
Scott, I know a lot of times people will have different passions for things, and certainly I can tell you're passionate about this. A lot of times I know that stuff will come from life experiences. Was there anybody in your life that has dealt with addiction or had to go through recovery or anything where this kind of came from that caused you to be so passionate about it? Or
Well, Chris, you're a wise man. I come from a family where addiction was rampant. My mother suffered greatly from it and died early. And I myself, in the 80s, got into serious trouble with drugs and alcohol. I was given an intervention and the opportunity to get myself clean and sober, and I did. And I'm proud to say I've been in recovery for more than 27 years.
And that's actually not unusual when you're dealing with addiction. It is a family problem, and that's another reason why Cornerstone is really effective, because we do bring the whole family in. The parents are taught how to deal with this issue so that they're not enabling their children to continue their addiction problems. So thank you for sharing that, Scott. I appreciate it. You mentioned a while ago that you just retired, and I know that you had retired from Baylor College of Medicine, and you had worked there for 40 years. So tell us a little bit more about the work that you did there and what you've been doing since your retirement, other than deciding to come back on board.
Well, thanks, Debbie. I've had just an amazingly wonderful career. In 1973, I was offered a position at Baylor College of Medicine, and after my fellowship at UCLA, and my training is in molecular biology and neurobiology. So I founded a research program at Baylor, and after 20 years moved into the dean's office, where I began doing student counseling and raising money for Baylor. I became associated with Texas Children's Cancer Center with which is without question one of the finest pediatric cancer centers in the world. So after 20 years in the dean's office, I was ready to retire. And then some friends of mine asked me to found this new organization called the Hope and Healing Center and the Hope and Healing Institute. And I did so, and after we had been open 2 years, finally had the strength to say, all right, I'm done. So I retired on December 31st, and the very first thing I did was come on the Cornerstone board. And I want to reinforce what you said. This is a huge, huge national problem. Our country spends over $580 billion a year on the consequences of addiction. It absolutely is a total family destroyer. And when it affects kids, families just come apart at the seams. So we really need to focus on how do we keep our kids sober, and when they get in trouble, let's not shame them or throw them under the bus. Let's help them out. Let's get them effective tools for recovery. And the alternative peer groups and Cornerstone Recovery, among the other alternative peer groups, is an outstanding tool for parents to use to get their kids sober.
I know we're getting really close to running out of time, but what would you say to somebody? How do you get somebody to that place of getting help when a lot of people they don't want to get help for it, or maybe their family members just kind of say, well, maybe it'll just get better on their own? How do you get to that point?
Well, Chris, that's the key question. Clearly, everyone who is sober has finally gotten there because they finally had enough and they were willing to get sober. So you use a combination of pressure, meaning, son, if you don't change your ways, we're going to have to ask you to leave home. And parents find that very difficult to do. But finally, by backing a person, either an adult or a child, into a corner, they'll finally look in the mirror and say, I've had enough of this. I'll accept help. And there's plenty of help available. Houston is a wonderful city to get help for both adults and children who are interested in recovery.
Is there a website that you can give us real quick?
It's cornerstonerecovery.org, O-R-G. And I do want to remind our listeners, we talked about it at the last program and also at the top of this one, that our annual breakfast is on March the 27th at the River Oaks Country Club. And as I said, we will be honoring Dr. Basinger. And it's a wonderful opportunity to come and hear more about the issue of addiction and also, of course, the work that Cornerstone Recovery does. So we would love to have them.
That was a great segment, and definitely thank you for being on, Scott, and also Debbie. I'm Chris Kidd. We'll be right back with The Price of Business.